I'm sitting here with Jim Bouton, Charlton Heston, who... Is The Hawaiians the name of the film that just opened? That you've been running all around town?
I thought you'd never bring it up.
I thought I would bring it up.
UA would be so mad at me, and you...
That's right. I know, I don't want them on my back. I want to see that, The Hawaiians. They did just open in New York,
Yes, indeed, last night.
That story intrigues me. So does this one. My next guest is Michael Crichton. He's an unusual young man. During the 4 years that he spent at medical school, he suddenly got the writing bug, wrote 7 novels, a couple of movies, and became a doctor.
Too, that writing bug.
The writing bug, yes. They haven't cured that.
No.
He dropped out from medicine, as you probably know. You read The Andromeda Strain.
I did. I liked it very much. I haven't read the new one, though.
If you haven't read The Andromeda Strain, it's a science fiction book about a giant hernia. If Michael Crichton is still standing in the wings...
I was setting you up for that, or I wouldn't have played along.
I used you, I feel, and him. This book is not fiction. It's called 5 Patients, and it's very exciting reading. The hospital is a terrific... There's a lot of drama, as you know, and he writes so well. We welcome Michael Crichton. I don't know why they don't put my chair farther downstage so that guests don't appear taller than myself.
It's very deceptive, isn't it? I mean,
sure, no one would know that.
No one would realize you were the tallest of
I
all
know,
of us.
it's this angle, of course. Thank you for bringing that up. How are you, Michael?
Good.
Why did you drop out of medicine? Is there any mystery to that in your mind, or is it quite clear why you left it to write?
I think it's clear. It's complicated. It's, you know, I think any life decision like that has a lot of things going on.
I can't even make those decisions.
Yeah.
Let other people make
It's
them
very
for me.
difficult, but it was, I think for me, partly that I wasn't getting what I had hoped I would get out of medicine, and partly that I thought I was getting out of writing.
Yeah.
That makes it easy.
I can't imagine. I've always thought the guy who's in medical school, of course, gets no sleep, works constantly, nearly ruins himself. But there's no way that a guy can write as much as you did and be in medical school. Can you live without sleep?
No, but I discovered in certain ways that I could live without medical school.
It seems one or the other.
Right.
Yeah.
So that you can, if you look at my grades, I think you can see where I did my writing because they sort of went along and there was a big drop.
The graph follows
That's right.
your
That was the
grades.
book.
Yeah.
You didn't hit on that solution that some film writers use of hiring fellas and chaining them to radiators in little rooms and
Oh, I
having
know,
them...
I do. I have a little guy in my apartment who just
yeah.
cranks it all out for me.
You don't
Or you
write
could
any
have
of
had
it?
him learn to be the doctor, and you could have stuck to writing.
Where did that myth start? That I guess that the novels of William Faulkner were actually written by a little colored boy who... They don't say colored boy anymore, do they?
No, they don't.
But
Bite your tongue.
we're taping years ago, folks. That's why I said that.
Here in 1954, why...
What would you be, Michael, if you'd stayed in medicine and writing hadn't grabbed you the way it did? What part of medicine would you be a specialist in now?
A psychiatrist, probably.
Would you?
Yeah, I think, or a surgeon. Surgery to me was a lot of fun. It's a manual kind of thing.
A lot of
A
fun?
lot of fun, yeah.
Very colorful and...
Minion laugh.
Surgery is... I'm in awe of surgeons, as I am of a great violinist or something. It's just, here's a man who can do something that almost no one else can do. I've had Dr. Barnard on the show and Dr. DeBakey, and you can't help looking at those hands. And their hands are different from other people's hands. There's no doubt about it.
Surgeons like you to be in awe of them.
They like
They like that,
you to
yeah.
be in awe?
Yeah.
Are surgeons generally more egotistical than other members of the medical profession, or...
I don't know. I think it's any kind of a job like that where sooner or later, you know, you're in charge. And if anything goes wrong, it's your fault. If it works out right, it's to your credit. But ultimately, it's your ballgame. People who go into that are certain kinds of people. And sure, they're very egotistical.
I often wonder, you said surgery being fun and all, and every so often you hear somebody say, I hear this doctor makes jokes while he's operating, or his son will come into the operating room and he tosses him the keys out of his pocket and goes right on, or he whistles or something like that. And at first that offends you, but then if you think about it, it seems like you would need that kind of objectivity to do what you do.
Yeah, I think, you know, a busy surgeon's going to spend many hours a week, 6 hours a day, maybe more, in an operating room, and he's got to do something besides be very grim and businesslike all the time.
What about, how many doctors that you know of are affected deeply when a patient dies that they're working on? I don't mean in numbers, but I mean, is that unusual. Dr. DeBakey said that he's hit very hard by it in spite of all the patients that he's operated on, and that he...
I don't know any that aren't, really.
It would be rare to not be, would it?
It's difficult, sure.
I just wonder if you can get so objective about the thing and see it as a pump or a machine that you're working on that you get objective about death too.
I think if you could, I wouldn't want you for my doctor.
Yeah. What's happening in psychiatry these days? There's always something peculiar going on there, and the latest thing I've heard about is, what is it? Are they using computers as psychoanalysts?
Well, there is a computer program which I put in the book because it was mostly amusing. It was done as a joke by a fellow named Weizenbaum at MIT several years ago. Mm-hmm. And what he set out to do is to see if you could program a computer to interact in something approaching a conversation with a person. And he did it by a series of kind of tricks so that, for example, the computer will pick up something in your sentence and play it back to you. If you mention parents, it'll pop back something about, can you tell me more, or why do you say that about blank, and put in the parents. But it turns out, in practice, to be kind of successful, kind of frighteningly successful in certain ways.
It sounds ludicrous to begin with. I mean, it would seem like the idea of therapy would be that the genius of the therapist would be that he treats every person as an individual and finds out what this individual's problems are, and he's unlike any other individual. But how can a machine do that?
That's right, and that particular point is why this thing is kind of frightening the psychiatrists.
Because it's succeeding?
Yeah, there's an interesting interaction that this particular thing is done on a teletype, so that you type in your statement, the computer types something back. Mm-hmm. And one very interesting one occurred between a real psychiatrist and the computer, the psychiatrist taking the part of the patient. And the psychiatrist was attempting to befoul the computer in every possible way, and really failed all along the line. At one point, he said to the computer, well, I know you're not a computer, because the computer can't hold a conversation like this with a person like me. And the computer typed back, oh, really?
Yes, that's a little...
And
what was his motive there, to destroy the computer's sense of identity?
I think to build up his own, you know. Oh. But at another point...
The computer doesn't have a voice, it just types back. I should think that would take out one of the main therapeutic elements of the whole
that it couldn't really talk.
Therapy situation.
Well, it types in a warm, personal way.
The voice of the therapist. Yeah, it's very warm.
The typing is actually interesting because the way this program is set up, you type in lowercase, the computer types back all caps.
Of course.
So we know who's boss.
That's right.
How did the psychiatrist in that machine work it out? Does it do the work now and he just mails out the bills, or
no,
did they work out a relationship?
What they are doing is very interesting, which is to test a very old hypothesis about artificial intelligence, which says, in effect, that you can say you have artificial intelligence if you present someone with a method of interacting with something else which is hidden. And if that something else is either a machine or a person, and you can't tell, then you've got artificial intelligence. So what they're doing with these consoles at this point now is sometimes letting patients come in and talk to the machine, and sometimes talk to first-year medical students and see if the patients can tell a difference.
Would this wouldn't be the computer to which somebody recently, in a situation such as you described, typed out the question and said, is there a God? And the computer typed back, not before now.
That's an eerie computer story, too. There's a point, you're told, in psychoanalysis where a dangerous point in psychoanalysis where a relationship begins to can occur between the doctor and the patient, that the reliance becomes so strong, and of course has to be broken. Is there any way this can happen with the machine? Has anyone tried to take it home, or? I mean, I'm trying not to ask a silly question,
no,
but
I think it's
but not succeeding.
No, it's really a funny thing. I think that, for example, we usually think that you can't have anything resembling transference on an inanimate object.
Is that thing called transference that I described? Yeah.
But it's clearly not true. I mean, the number of people who adore their cars, are very upset if anything happens to their cars, who are more worried if...
What do you mean?
Well, we got one here.
My car's prettier than yours.
Trying to subdue these impulses on my program.